Good morning, students. Today, let me explain you about a concept called respiratory pigments and physiology of respiration. In the previous class itself, I have explained you about one of the main type of respiratory pigments, that is hemoglobin. And today it will be the continuation of that hemoglobin, that is with reference to other pigments, other types of pigments, and some part of the physiology of respiration. The next pigment is hemocyanin. Hemocyanin is a pigment is of wide occurrence and is a non-heme respiratory pigment. It is dispersed in the plasma and has never been found in the corpuscles. So it is always found in the plasma but not in the RBCs. The metallic atom is copper here, and which gives it a characteristic blue color. So unlike hemoglobin, which is red in color, but this is blue in color because of the presence of the metallic group copper. And in addition to copper, it is formed of protein also, that is copper plus protein. That is hemocyanin is a combination of copper plus protein. And the molecule of hemocyanin is large and consisting of one copper atom associated with the peptide chain of about 200 amino acids. And it has a molecular weight of about 66 lakhs and 50,000 kilodaltons, and that differs in different animals. Like all proteins, hemocyanin absorbs UV rays, and it is not able to transport equivalent volume of oxygen as that of hemoglobin. So it is a lesser carrier of oxygen molecules when compared to hemoglobin. And the hemoglobin occurs in the plasma of arthropods, Palemon, and Limulus and Daphnia, and as well as in molluscans like Sepia and octopus and helix. Whereas this hemocyanin is present usually in the these kind of arthropods and molluscans. So it should be hemocyanin, not hemoglobin. And in oxygenated form, it is bright blue in color, and in deoxygenated form, it is colorless. So when it absorbs oxygen, it will be bluish colored, and when there is no oxygen binding to it, it is colorless pigment. This hemocyanin, it is any of a group of copper containing respiratory proteins found in solution in the blood of certain arthropods, which I already mentioned, like in case of crabs and lobsters, and even in molluscans. And hemocyanins contain two copper atoms that reversibly bind oxygen, and changing between the colorless deoxygenated form, that is QL, and the blue oxygenated form, that is CuLL. And in some species, hemocyanin molecules form giant polymers with molecular weights of several million daltons. So this will be the structure of this hemocyanin, and this is for your reference only, but it is not very important from the point of view of your examination. That means you need not remember the structure of hemocyanin for the examination purpose. Then coming to the next pigment, hemerythrin. It is violet to pink in oxygenated form and colorless in deoxygenated form. So here also this hemerythrin is colorless in deoxygenated form, that is without the combination of oxygen, and with the combination of oxygen or in oxygenated form, it will be either violet to pink in color. It is formed of iron and protein, and the iron is directly attached to the protein, and there is no porphyrin. So porphyrin is absent here, so that is the one difference between hemoglobin and hemerythrin. And the molecular weight varies from 6,60,000 kilodaltons to 1,20,000 kilodaltons. And it has been found that 3 atoms of iron are necessary to combine with 1 molecule of oxygen. So it is also a poor carrier. And the oxygen carrying capacity is very low that is only 1/4 as compared to hemoglobin. So this is also not a very efficient type of respiratory pigment when compared to hemoglobin. And this is found in annelids like polychaetes and megalon. Next is hemoerythrin. It is a red iron containing respiratory pigment that occurs in the blood of certain worms, especially in case of annelids and in some siphonculeates, and its structure is essentially the same as that of hemoglobin except the prosthetic group, which has a different chemical composition. So this is another respiratory pigment called hemoerythrin. And this is the structure of hemoerythrin. As I said, with reference to hemocyanin, this is also not very important from the point of view of examination, but it is for your knowledge purpose I am giving you this structure. Now coming to the functions of respiratory pigments in general, they provide specific color of the body fluid or blood. As you know that hemoglobin, it imparts red color to the blood, and it helps in the respiratory gases transportation and to carry them from one place to another place. And this is also these pigments are also important from the point of view of the storage of oxygen, that is one of the chief respiratory gas. And these are acting like pH buffers, and they are enhancing the gradients for gas diffusion, and their possible enzymatic function. It is also one of the functions of these respiratory pigments. And as you see here in the bottom of this slide, this is how this hemoglobin binds to the oxygen molecules that it has received from the alveoli, that is from the lungs. And once it enters into the orifices, as you see here, they are found to be in an oxygenated form inside the orifices, and once they reach the tissue level or the cellular level, that oxygen gets dissociated from hemoglobin, and that will be delivered to or transported to the body cells. Let us quickly go through a comparison of these different respiratory pigments. And here in this tabular column, the three respiratory pigments are given like hemoglobin, hemocyanin and hemerythrin, and the details of which are as follows. And the oxygen binding material in hemoglobin is iron, and the globin part will be iron again here, and in hemocyanin it is copper and iron respectively. And in case of this tabular column, you can see that the location of this hemoglobin is intracellular usually, that is inside the orifices, whereas the erythrochrominin, the other type of respiratory pigment, and chlorochrominin, other type of pigment, they are extracellular, they are found outside the cells, that is orifices. So here this erythrochrominin and chlorochrominin, they are given here, but they are not there for your syllabus, so you can omit this while preparing for the examination. You can concentrate only on the hemoglobin, hemocyanin and hemerythrin. And the source of organisms are as follows. And in hemoglobin, it is found in almost all vertebrates, and in hemocyanin, it is found in arthropods and molluscans, and hemerythrin is found in siphoncules, Priapellida and some Brachiopoda and a single annelid genus. And with reference to the next character, that is oxygenated color, it is bright red in hemoglobin, blue in hemocyanin and violet in case of the hemoerythrin. And the deoxygenated color will be crimson red in case of hemoglobin, and in case of hemocyanin it is colorless. So same is with reference to hemerythrin. So this is a comparative account of these different respiratory pigments with reference to their different features. Now Coming to the physiology of respiration or the mechanism of respiration, and the first one being external respiration or pulmonary gas exchange. It is nothing but the diffusion of oxygen from air in the alveoli of the lungs to blood in pulmonary capillaries, and the diffusion of carbon dioxide in the opposite direction. So it is not the actual mechanism of breathing here, because breathing, it involves two phases, as we have already discussed it in previous class, like inspiration and expiration, or inhalation and exhalation respectively. And once that oxygen is taken in inside the lungs, that will be exchanged to the blood capillaries found surrounding the alveoli, and that phase what we call it as external respiration or pulmonary gas exchange. And you should also remember one thing, that at the time of movement of oxygen, parallelly there is also the movement of carbon dioxide, which is there in large amounts in the blood capillaries. So this external respiration, it is the actual process of the exchange of respiratory gases like oxygen and carbon dioxide between the alveoli and the capillary blood found surrounding the alveoli. External respiration in the lungs converts deoxygenated blood coming from the right side of the heart into oxygenated blood, and that returns to the left side of the heart. And as blood flows through the pulmonary capillaries, it picks up oxygen from alveolar air and unloads carbon dioxide into alveolar air, and this process is called an exchange of gases, and this process is carried by the mechanism or the principle of diffusion. So only on the based on the difference in the concentration, there will be the diffusion of these respiratory gases. So this picture will clearly explain you what actually is going to happen during this gaseous exchange, that is during this external respiration, which is the gas exchange between alveoli and the capillaries. And here one thing you should concentrate is that this red colored arrow marks representing the movement of oxygen, and these blue colored arrow marks representing the movement of carbon dioxide. And you can see this structure of this alveolus here, a single alveolus, and these are the blood capillaries found surrounding these alveoli, and they are carrying large amount of carbon dioxide, which is shown in the blue color, and these are the red colored ones, dark red colored ones. They are the ones which is nothing but the RBCs carrying the carbon dioxide, and there will be the exchange of this carbon dioxide and oxygen. That's what you can make out. So this oxygen will diffuse into capillaries, and they are actually combining with the RBCs to form oxyhemoglobin, and wherein the carbon dioxide diffuses from capillary blood into alveolar space, from where they will be exhaled outside during the process of expiration. So this diagram will excellently explain you how and what is going to happen at the time of external respiration. So oxygen transportation. So in the physiology of respiration, we will have to discuss on two such transporting mechanisms. One is oxygen transportation, and the other one is carbon dioxide transportation. You know that this oxygen is very essential for our body cells, but its transportation seems to be very simple. On the other hand, the carbon dioxide, though it is not very essential for our body, but it is being transported in different forms, and it is quite complicated thing or the mechanism when compared to the oxygen transportation. And you know, it is not easy to drive away these what you call these militants from our country. We need to struggle a lot. Likewise, this carbon dioxide, they are like militants present in our body, and their expelling requires more mechanisms here. So first let me explain about the oxygen transportation. Oxygen does not dissolve very easily in water. So only about 1% of inhaled oxygen is dissolved in the blood plasma, which is mostly water. And about 98.5% of the blood oxygen is bound to the hemoglobin in RBCs, and this combination we call it as oxygenation. So in some textbooks, some authors, they have mentioned it like it is the process of oxidation, but it is totally wrong, because oxidation occurs inside the cells, during which energy is going to be liberated. But this is not oxidation, but it is oxygenation. And about 98.5% of the blood is bound to the hemoglobin in RBCs, and each 100 ml of oxygenated blood contains about 20 ml of gaseous oxygen in them, and this capacity of the blood is what is referred to as oxygen carrying capacity. So what is oxygen carrying capacity? For every 100 ml of oxygenated blood, if it contains 20 ml of gaseous oxygen in it, the process is described as the oxygen carrying capacity of the blood. The heme portion of the hemoglobin contains 4 atoms of the iron, and each is capable of binding to a molecule of oxygen, and about 98% of the oxygen that is bound to hemoglobin is being transported in this form called oxygenated hemoglobin. Oxygen and hemoglobin bind in an easily reversible reaction to form oxyhemoglobin, that is O2 plus H2B is equal to 4HgBO2. And as blood flows through the tissue capillaries, the iron oxygen reaction reverses, and the hemoglobin is released from the oxygen, which gets diffused into the interstitial fluid and then into cells. So this is how oxygen is being transported. And the air that we inhale is a mixture of several gases, like it contains about 79% of nitrogen in it, and 20% of oxygen, and 0.04% of carbon dioxide, and other gases too, which is accounting for about 0.96%. And its atmospheric pressure is about 760 mm of Hg, and it is estimated that when the air reaches the alveoli, the oxygen in it is about 13%, and thus the partial pressure of oxygen, that is PO2, in the alveoli is about 13% only. So this diagram will explain you that how that exchange or the transportation occurs here. And this partial pressure of oxygen, abbreviated as PO2, it is about 40 mm of Hg in the capillary blood of the alveoli, and the PO2 inside the alveolar air, it is about 100 mm of Hg. And at this difference, there is a simple diffusion of oxygen from alveolar air to capillary blood. And as I said earlier, that parallelly there will be the movement of carbon dioxide again. So the PCO2 of this capillary blood, it is about 40 mm of Hg, and inside the alveoli it is about 36 mm of Hg. And at this difference in the partial pressure of the gradient, there will be the movement of carbon dioxide from capillary blood to alveolar air, which will be exhaled outside the system during expiration. The oxygen partial pressure in the blood on the wall of the alveoli is estimated to be only 40 mm of Hg, and thus due to the difference in pressure, oxygen from the alveoli diffuses into the blood, and in the blood the hemoglobin molecules pick up 4 molecules of oxygen each and become oxyhemoglobin. The reaction is shown here. And this oxyhemoglobin is taken to the tissues where it dissociates, liberating oxygen, and then the oxygen liberated is utilized for the metabolism of glucose to yield energy. And this breakdown of hemoglobin, that is oxygen especially, from hemoglobin is called dissociation, whereas the one which occurs in the alveolar region, it is called association or oxygenation. And during energy production, carbon dioxide and water are produced as waste products which have to be eliminated outside the system. Coming to some factors affecting the affinity of hemoglobin for oxygen. Although PO2, that is partial pressure of oxygen, is the most important factor that determines the percent of oxygen saturation of hemoglobin, the following four factors affect the affinity of hemoglobin for oxygen. So this is another important topic here, that factors which affects the association of oxygen with hemoglobin or the affinity of hemoglobin for oxygen. They are: number one, acidity or pH, then partial pressure of carbon dioxide, temperature, and then 2,3 biphosphoglycerate, or it is simply abbreviated as BPG. Now coming to acidity, the first factor. As acidity increases, the pH decreases, and affinity of hemoglobin for oxygen also decreases, and oxygen dissociates more readily from hemoglobin. And when H plus ions bind to amino acids in hemoglobin, they alter its structure slightly, decreasing its oxygen carrying capacity, thus lower the pH, which drives oxygen off hemoglobin, making more oxygen available for tissue cells. So in this graph, it is clearly mentioned over here, or explained over here, that what is the actual relationship between the acidity of that reaction and the dissociation of oxyhemoglobin. And as you observe here in this first graph, so this graph is being represented by considering or taking the percent saturation of hemoglobin on the one side, that is along the x-axis, and partial pressure on the y-axis. And at low pH, that is about 7.2, the oxygen dissociation curve is represented in this red color, and when it is higher, that is about 7.6, the representation of that reaction is being shown in blue color, and the same is being shown when the pH is 7.4, which is said to be the normal or the ideal pH. So if you just go through this graph in detail, you will understand that. The next factor is partial pressure of carbon dioxide. And carbon dioxide enters the blood, it is temporarily converted to carbonic acid, and it dissociates and forms hydrogen ions and bicarbonate ions. So in red blood cells, the H plus concentration increases and the pH decreases. Thus, an increased PCO2 produces a more acidic environment, which helps the release of oxygen from hemoglobin. And the reaction is being shown here at this bottom of the slide. So CO2 plus H2O producing H2CO3, and Ca, which is being shown here on the top of this arrow mark, there represents the carbonic anhydrase. And that H2CO3, that is carbonic acid, it dissociates to liberate H plus ions and HCO3 minus ions, or the bicarbonate ions. So this is how the reaction occurs there. And in this graph, it is been explained that how this carbon dioxide affects the the dissociation of oxygen from hemoglobin. And you just go through this and you will understand that easily. And coming to the next factor, temperature. Heat is a byproduct of the metabolic reactions of all the cells, and the heat released by contracting muscle fibers tends to rise the body temperature, and metabolically active cells require more oxygen and liberate more acids and heat. So here you will able to see the influence of this temperature, how it affects the dissociation of oxygen. So let me not go into the details of this chart here or the graph here. If you read it, you will understand. Now the last one is 2,3-biphosphoglycerate, or shortly abbreviated as BPG. It is also called diphosphoglycerate, and BPG is formed in red blood cells when they break down glucose to produce ATP in a process called glycolysis. So it is one of the important product produced at the time of glycolysis. And when BPG combines with hemoglobin, it unloads or decreases the bonding of hemoglobin with the oxygen, as a result of which it favors the dissociation of oxygen. So this is how this BPG influences the rate of dissociation. So more the amount of BPG, more will be the dissociation, and vice versa. So let me stop at this level and let me explain you the concept of the mechanism of transportation of carbon dioxide in next class. Thank you.